All right, so we're live in our after party, and Cory is live with a special guest.
Hey, look at door. Look over there. Look over there. Look. Say hi to everybody. Say hello. Oh, you want to eat my finger? I don't know that I've washed that finger well enough for your mom to be comfortable with that.
Finger looked interesting.
I don't know how well she can see at this stage. I always forget developmental things, but she's pretty much at that stage where anything near her mouth goes in her mouth. So,
dude, that is pretty amazing. I want to share one epic thing since we're doing the kid stuff. I should share this. This was wait. Oh, come on. There we go. That was my son's drawing today.
Oh yeah, I saw that on Instagram. I had a question that I was going to ask, and then I got really busy. But alive, is that a header or just a fact?
I think it's just
that the bees are alive.
Yeah, I think it's that there's 2.5 million bees that are alive.
Okay,
so and this is like the stats and the health bars. He's like he likes gamifying everything.
What's the hand?
The hand, I think that I'm not really sure. I think that has to do with like the honeycomb or something, because we watched a program about collecting honey from like a beehive.
Okay.
So I'm gonna have to ask about that one. But I definitely am guessing it's like some kind of status bar having to do with the health, because he likes gamifying everything.
Yeah.
But I do know that like if I do a second music project, that's a pretty darn good album cover.
Yeah.
So I think that might actually be what I'll use. I love that bee, just the big square.
Yeah, that is cool.
So that made my day today. But
that is rad.
Yeah. So I felt like that was a good show. Sorry it went over. We were just talking about it. Maybe with those ones, maybe they split into two. I don't know. And if anybody's wondering, what am I talking about? Go to irsagency.com because we do a pretty good review show of indie comics and content, and do a pretty thorough like reading of books and stuff. So if you guys are watching this after party, you might actually enjoy the other thing. So far, people seem to like the after parties more.
It's honestly like,
I think it's just the word party.
Yeah, that's got to be it. I think it's just, how much more popular the DVD extras are than the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people pay, tons of money to go get tickets to watch the behind the scenes, right? Or is that not how it is?
I think that
what's up? Are you sad?
Might be for artists. I think a lot of us artists would like seeing just like a line test of an animated film rather than the actual film. Like, yeah. I'd love to see. Like, I'd love it if they released like The Rescuers as just the line art, like before, like the test lines.
Yeah.
Wow, she's
I tried wearing her. Oh, I forgot to bring a binky. Huh. Dad is failing here. Dad's used to having an 11-year-old. I tried wearing her so that I could work on stuff. That did not work. I had her all wrapped up, and I spent 2 hours getting about 10 minutes worth of stuff done.
Oh, hey. Yeah, that's the tough part.
Okay, let's go find Mom. Let's go find Mom.
Get the mom, get the binky.
Yeah. Mom's the one that has all the stuff that she wants. Yeah. I'm just a placeholder in between mom holdings.
Yeah, that makes sense. Still, you got to get in those holdings while you can, man. They're fun.
Okay, I'll be back. Okay,
right.
Say bye. Say bye, everybody. See you later.
Bye. It was nice meeting you. You're awesome.
Oh, I know.
That was like the best guest I think we'll ever have on a show for a long time.
You remember Maddox as a guest? He was.
I do. He's old. That's true. Man, we've been doing this a while.
Yeah, we have.
It's a trip. So today was interesting. I'm just going to fill the time. And by the way, if you guys are joining us, like, feel free to jump on the chats, ask questions, let us know what you're working on if you're working on art. A lot of people that hang out in these after parties or my live streams tend to be working on art projects. It's this weird thing where we're all creatives. So let me know what you're working on. But in the meantime, I'll tell you guys a little story, and maybe, unfortunately, might have to repeat it when Cory gets here. So today I had like a brief window of time. We had some people come in and quote air conditioning costs, because that's something we need to do. We have like a house that has like 30-year-old air conditioning, and the swamp cooler is awesome, but it'd be nice to actually have legit air conditioning, considering we live in a desert. So anyhow, but it would need to be like energy proofed, because the one we have now, like, I think we ran for 1 week when we first moved in, and our electric bill was like $600, and we were like, we can't do that again. So we got a swamp cooler. We've been using that for like 6 years. Anyhow, whatever. Long story short, crazy day, a lot of things. Had to catch up on this book, prep for the review of the book that we went over, which is Winsor McCay, His Life and Art, which is a really good book. But then just kind of catching up on stuff, trying to get my workout in, all that fun, regular stuff. And I did manage to stop by a local comic shop, and I think I booked a signing, but it was so casual, our conversation, that I sent an email just to confirm it, because I don't want to like promote it or mention it on social media or whatever, and then like the next day I have to go, never mind. So, but that's exciting, and it's the start of like what I envision being just kind of like a long-term project of eventually, like seeing how well I can push that. So we'll see. We'll have to see. But anyhow, I do want to start eventually like booking signings and like doing conventions and doing live things, because I'm at the point where I'm fully vaccinated. So I want to start kind of getting out there and like doing more physical promotion of the book. So that's where what I've been up to today. And yeah, but I also need to really badly, I have to work on this comic page, which is page 116, I think, is what I'm working on. Oh, and then I would say also this Thursday on Artcasters, we have Javier Hernandez showing up, which is pretty cool. It was like a byproduct of the last Artcasters, where the topic of Latino comic representation was brought up, and I was like, oh crap, like I know a guy who like started the Latino Comics Fest, like he co-founded it in Long Beach. So I was like, it would be cool to have him on. I haven't talked to Hav in years, and he's a good dude. He's a Facebook friend, but we go way back. Like, he helped me out, gave me some good advice, like early on in my career. We met at like the worst convention that an indie cartoonist could choose to go to when they're not familiar with conventions.
What is that?
Or don't have a setup. Like, I didn't have a booth set up or anything. So I went to Wizard World in Los Angeles. That was my first comic convention, and I was like, it was the most depressing thing ever.
I don't know much about that show.
So it was like a very at the time, I'm sure maybe now it's not as stringently weird, because this is like early 2000s, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, like 9 out of 10 people who stopped by, I didn't have a proper booth set up either. So this like pretty much made all the typical first show mistakes. Like And weirdly enough, I might replicate some of those because I am like shrinking down my table. Like right now, I just ordered like a pull-up banner. And so like when I go to conventions right now, it's probably going to be like some books, a pull-up banner. I might have some giveaway postcards. I got to think about that like have
Did you see my Salt Lake City booth?
Yes. Yeah.
That didn't cost that much to make. And
I don't. Yeah.
Full stretch thing, and it collapses down into like a pretty small thing.
Yeah, I mean, I do that if I were doing prints or anything like that, but I literally am going there with the objective of just pushing the book. So
I'm just talking about the banner behind me, because you're talking about vertical pull-ups.
Yeah, that's mainly for in stores and then like small convention. Like if I end up doing like an artist alley kind of thing. If I do like a full out, I might do like a bigger banner. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't think I need to take up like a massive amount of space. And that's the theory on it. So I'm kind of doing like an in-between. I'm going to do like a hybrid, but I do want to present it well and like have pricing and stuff like that, because the worst thing you can do is just show up with like your book and a sketch pad, which is what I did. But a bunch of people would just stop by specifically to tell me, oh, I don't buy that kind of comic. I just buy superhero books. And I was like, why would you why would you even say that? Like, why even come by
why are you telling me this?
Yeah. And I had a couple people straight up be like, I'm into capes and tights. And I'm like, you shouldn't, but like, oh,
you're all confused.
I should say that about what you're going to say, not you. Like, but yeah, it was really depressing. And then I met Javier, who was like just super nice and encouraging. It was like, oh, it's your first book, and gave me some tips and like, some encouragement too. Cause I was like, is this unusual for like a convention? Am I just weird? Like there weren't podcasts or like YouTube shows where people talked about this kind of stuff at the time. So it was really helpful. And then like, yeah, we've kind of on and off been sort of in the similar circles. He's really good friends with Jim. Like we had him, like he was in that early podcast circle that like Kevin and me were in. And had like his own thing at the time, like his own podcasts and stuff. So yeah. So anyhow, it'll be fun to have him on. He's a good dude. But yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a new action for what I'm about to do.
Dude.
Let's do invert. Okay, and record. So I just finished all 12 volumes, so the entire run of Invincible yesterday. Not that I read it all yesterday, but I finished it yesterday.
The whole run?
Yeah. So however many weeks that's been on, I started reading it about a week before it went on again, and it is amazing. No, I don't want to delete it. I want.
Does it conclude well, or does it go like Walking Dead style and get all scattered and nuts?
Well, I've never seen or read The Walking Dead, but I feel like it wraps up really well.
Nice.
So it does speed a little bit. I feel like it does kind of like blow through. The end just speeds up really fast, but I actually feel like it's just pretty decent pacing decisions that they've made.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. I liked it.
I dig that. I need to check that out.
Let's see. Do I want to? I'm going to do that differently. So let's see. I'm going to
start, because I think most conventions, and this is one of those things where I'm going to have to do a little more research on it, but it seems like most things are canceled. So I'm going to have to look into it. I think I don't know. I know there's like a Long Beach Comic-Con in September that might happen. There's a couple things I need to look into, but it's like it's a hard time to like book a convention, and I'm gonna have to ask around to people who are still conventioning. But so I'm gonna start doing a little research on that, and then I'm gonna just start going to stores and just straight up being like, I have these books. Would you like to carry them, or do you do consignment? If not, like, can I do a signing? Like, is there anything I can do to help your shop, like generate more sales for your shop and stuff too? And I'll just start booking those. Yeah. And if like 2 people show up, cool. Because like I definitely am old enough now and seasoned enough now to know how those things can go, where you can have like a really packed house at a store signing, or you could have like absolutely no one show up. And I feel more comfortable about it, especially after reading Adrian Tomine's book. We're like, okay, so Tomine would like do a signing with like Klaus or like some, like Seth, like the artist Seth, who's like legitimately famous.
Yeah.
And they'd both be sitting there and like no one would show up. And then they'd call friends and be like, hey, can you like stop by the store? Cause it's pretty embarrassing. Like just pretend to be comic book buyers. And I was like, okay, so if that, like, to me, I think, I don't know. I still think it'll help. And I think it'll help start relationships with local shops too, which I think are really important. So yeah. So that's my weird, stupid knock on doors sales strategy that I'm going to try for a little bit, see how it works in my free time. With all my free time,
All the free times. Okay, I'm going to add Shift Control F6. So
I should look and see if they have comic conventions in Florida, because I guarantee they didn't cancel anything. But I'm like, it's weird to be fully vaccinated, and yet the only thing that sucks is like the little ones, because they're not there yet. Like they don't have anything for kids under 12. Yeah. And that kind of sucks, because it's like, while it feels like you feel this sense of relief as a parent, it's also like kind of sucks, because you're like, okay, now we have to navigate that new world, which is not a fun world to be in, where it's like, hey kid, we have some freedoms you don't have. That's always a really crappy thing for your kid, because it's like,
right.
And then how to navigate that environment is going to be really interesting and weird.
That is weird for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I've been saying that to my kids forever though. So
yeah. Well, I mean, that's true. There are things that adults can do that kids can't, but it doesn't help to add more,
Right.
I don't know. Then again.
Work. Okay, let's try this again. I go here, and then I press this button, and it fills the entire thing. What am I doing wrong? What is up with my action?
Are you trying to do a fill action? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, I'm trying to have it expand 2 pixels, delete, invert the selection, then... Oh, where did that come from? That's because that's there. Okay. So now let's try this again. Go here and then push the button. Yeah. So I'm just getting it so I have these inks underneath so that I have like a layer to paint on.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. So I grab each of these and then I push this button and this button. Yes. Love it. What? Stop. Why wouldn't it be? There we go.
So the nice thing about, I think the next book that I get to do is like Darth Vader and Son. So I'm pretty excited about that after this last one.
Yeah.
Because I
A lot
got
less
really into
depressing.
reading this book, but holy moly, it took up a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a novel. I mean, not a
Yeah.
novel, but it's not a comic. Like comics are a quicker read compared to like prose books.
Yeah, and I think like with a book there's like story beats, but with like a biography, especially a biography about a time that's like super fascinating. For me, I struggle summarizing it because it's just so much interesting stuff, you know? Where it's like I can see the larger arc, like even in this, there's a structured narrative of like kind of the rise and fall of Winsor McCay, pretty much.
Right.
You know, and it's like phase 3 is like the peak and then the decline. And it's like there's a narrative structure to it and an arc to it, but it's still like there's so many little details that I just like am like, whoa, that's great. Like even just the fact that there was an era where there's like dime store museums and that was like the hip thing to do, where it's like, hey, let's go to this like freak show on the corner and check
Right.
out like this guy do his juggling act, watch this comedian do his bit, and then maybe watch a guy draw cartoons. Like that existed. Like there's a point, and it's funny because I also caught myself saying something that's totally stupid, where I was like, there was a point where cartoonists were on Broadway, and I'm like, wait a minute, we just did Fun Home, and that's a current recent one where a cartoon was adapted to, you know, Broadway. I mean, that happens all the time still, but it is weird to just think of a time where it's like I don't know, cartoonists were like rock stars. It's very strange.
Well, but I mean, like,
that's a different level than even like I feel like the newspaper strip guys were on a different level than even like Steve Ditko or Stan Lee, you know?
Oh no, it was like you were legit. You were like part of the upper crust of society back in the day. Yeah, that was some serious stuff when you were a cartoonist, like a newspaper cartoonist. I can't remember. Why do I know that? There's a series of stories where I remember, but it was like, oh, you know what it was? I know what it was. It was at Hearst Castle, which is near where I grew up. They have films where they talk about Hearst, and obviously, you know, they're not going to paint him in a negative light, but you can kind of see between the lines, and like they would have these huge parties where they'd have like,
oh, dude,
what's that?
He had McCay like later in his life. He finally like kind of gave McCay credit and invited him to like San Simeon.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, I just having been there, it's like, oh man, that was a crazy place.
No, it is nuts. So you've done the tour and stuff?
Oh, dude, yeah, it's surreal.
Yeah.
There are things that just kind of blow my comprehension away.
Yeah.
And one of them is that at a time in America, like a newspaper mogul, like I'm trying to give an example for like somebody who's never been there. Okay. You go in there and it's like, hey, that roof, that was a roof that was on like a medieval castle. It's priceless. And William Randolph Hearst had them cut it out of, it's a solid oak roof, cut it out and then ship it like on 3 shipping, boats, like across or something, to like transport this giant solid oak thing, and then use cranes and all these absurd levels of equipment to get it up on the top of this hill in San Simeon, California, because that was the roof he wanted in his like crazy megaplex castle that's just like cut and paste art history.
Okay, and then weirder than that, right? Because that's crazy. But then he would also be like, I'd like the turret of that castle over there.
Mhm.
I'd like the drawbridge of this. So like, it's called Hearst Castle. It's 3 distinct complexes basically
Yeah.
in this thing, and it is all 100% made out of like just pillaging European architecture.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a pool outdoors where it's like where he was like, I want some Grecian sculptures, but I don't want replicas. I want the actual marble sculptures.
Right.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna like, but I also don't want them at full scale. So what I want to do is like lop them off at the knees, these priceless statues, and I want them like arranged at my pool outdoors because my indoor pool, I got a whole gold theme going there, so I'm gonna inlay
And
gold
when you
on the
say
whole
gold
thing.
theme, it is a golden pool,
Yeah,
not gold
it's
leaf.
no
Gold, a
gold.
solid gold pool.
Yeah. And that's just the below decks one where everybody has crazy wild orgy parties. So upstairs,
This is nuts.
the outdoor one's just going to be like the whole place. Anyhow, it's a weird thing where it's like you walk through there and you can't help but feel like there's certain levels of wealth that are just absurd because
Yeah.
it's like a man with just more money than they can waste, just like piling just this crazy. It's also beautiful in a weird way, but it's just like every aesthetic mixed together in this just cacophonous madness. Yeah,
But
it's
it is
insane.
literally insane. Like I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah, it's nuts.
And it gives you a window into the mind of the guy, and you can see why. There's things he did that were very revolutionary and cool. Like not everybody who's like a wealthy magnate and kind of terrible businessman with other people has like a 100% bad story. Like I said in the review too, it's like if it weren't for him, like you probably wouldn't have had Crazy Cat. I think he had to do with Frank King, Gasoline Alley, like 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 most of the early revolutionary comic book artists and the Sunday paper format, that was all kind of Hearst just really believing in comics.
Right.
So it's like there's that positive, but he also like blacklisted Orson Welles because of Citizen Kane, and like the guy didn't work for 50 years.
Yeah.
Because he had that power where he owned all the newspapers. So it's like if he said like, don't hire this guy or you're never getting press, like pretty much every major corporation or film department would be like, nope. And it's
Well,
like there's a micro level of that with McCay, right? Where it's like McCay puts out this thing to rave reviews, and then suddenly everything just drops from all media, and it's because Hearst made a call. Like that's insane.
Right.
Yeah,
it's pretty nuts.
That must have been fun though, growing up near there, because it's a fun trip. Like it's a cool place to go.
Yeah, my dad and I would go surfing across the street from Hearst Castle, across the freeway. I think it's 1 or 101.
Mm-hmm.
There's this cow pasture, and if you hop the fence in that cow pasture and just don't get hit by any of the bulls, you kind of run with your board and then climb down this little, I wouldn't call it a cliff, but it's a little embankment. There's a nice little surf spot right there. That's, because of the natural difficulty in getting there, it's usually not terribly crowded. But we'd go there, and Hearst, like, up until he like turned it over to California and like was like, here, it's yours now, or his estate, they still had like zebras and giraffes and all kinds of crazy. It's not a zoo, but just like in the front kind of 10 acres or whatever that are like bordering the freeway and lead up to the castle. There's all kinds of animals that I think if anybody actually looked into it too much, like many of those animals shouldn't be kept in the same area. Like they're not, like sometimes you'd see like zebras and giraffes. That makes sense, right? They're kind of from the same continent. But then sometimes you'd see like just a pack of horses running around with like ostriches, and it was just like, I don't know what they did with the animals, but there was just always a weird collection of animals.
Yeah,
there.
I think on that property you just did weird things. And what's weird too is like on the tour they talk about like the Hearst family kind of turned it over to the state because of property taxes, because it's just absurd. Like you can't just maintain that kind of payment unless you're maintaining Hearst level, wealth.
Right.
But they also have some secret agreement with the national park system where like if the Hearsts like call and are like, hey, we're gonna have like a party at the castle, like they just shut it down and like give them all access to it, which is insane. Yeah. So I guess the Hearst family still like takes wealthy people up there and parties in the pool and stuff. It's very strange, but I just find it weird that I don't know. I love that area. That area is beautiful. That would have been a really neat.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember the name of that strip. Like there's a series of like small shops if you go just a little further.
Not up to Big Sur, but just a little bit further. Is it?
Yeah.
Oh man, no, it starts the C. Cambria.
Yeah, and yes, Cambria, and also there's an area there where like I think it's like sea lions or something. Like they come there yearly, and it looks like they're just dead. Like it's just a million of them just like beached, and laying around the beach. But they come there to like scratch off, like to get rid of their coat. I guess like it's just like a seasonal thing.
And they mate there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hilarious if you go at the right time of year, because you'll go there and you can just walk around the beach with like right next to all these crazy like hippo like sea lions. You're just hanging out.
To be clear though, you shouldn't actually walk near the sea lions.
No.
Because the sea lions are okay. It's the elephant seals that you should be careful of. And the elephant seals are also kind of up in that area. And there are
really funny noses.
Yes, but there are people that mess with the elephant seals, and they are gigantic and strong.
Oh,
like, those are anyway. Just growing up, I used to see people, like dumb tourists and stuff go up there, and I want to play with this elephant seal because it's just lying around, and you're like,
get torched by an elephant seal.
Yeah, that elephant seal is not just lying around. That elephant seal is like, 1,800 pounds of rage and muscle.
Oh yeah, those things are crazy, man. They'll mess you up too if they feel threatened.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Anyway.
But it'll look funny when it's happening because they have a really funny nose.
They have a funny nose, and they kind of like, remember in the 90s breakdancing, they kind of do the worm.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they kind of like run at you. Is they just like breakdance towards you.
That's funny. I never put that together. Like I should have put it together that's like close to where you grew up. But
yeah,
that's a cool area. Very like artsy little area, actually.
Yeah, it has become that. I mean, all the wineries that have moved in have kind of made it a lot more artsy than it has been in the past. Yeah, there's little communities out there that do cool stuff. They're kind of leaning into the art. Okay, I'm trying to color this so that it doesn't take me 9 years to color all 10 versions of this image.
Yeah, I'm definitely it's going to be one of those nights of I'm not sure how long I'm going to go. I'm going to hopefully go a little longer. But it's been like a day or like quite it's weird when you have those. Well, I mean, you've got like a baby, so
yeah,
I'm sure that is true for you more than for me. But it's interesting when you have like those days that are just full of like little life tasks.
Yeah,
and it's very hard to find windows or energy. But I was really happy to like. I'm hoping that local signing actually happens. And what's funny is it's not much of a comic shop. Like I don't mean that as an insult. It's just more of like a collector's card kind of type shop.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm imagining like having done these things before, especially knowing like I don't think a huge amount of my fan base is like in my current hometown, you know.
Right.
If I could even say fan base, I don't really have much of a fan base, but they're much more spread out, and I think I'd have better luck in like a bigger city. But it would still be fun, even if I end up there for like 6 hours and there's 2 people who I don't know who buy the book. I will go for that. It's worth it.
That would be cool.
Unless it's like a very tiny kid, and then I will be like, do not buy this book. And they'll be like, but I like comics. And I'll be like, do not buy this book. You shall not pass.
He's listening to me. All right. Then let's do some highlights.
So you're going to have to do that level of color fill on every iteration of that?
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to make it not ridiculous. But also I need it to match the style of everything else I've done.
Yeah, and I think that is a strength of your work, is that like because you're doing kind of limited animation, it's like the strength of that is always when you do kind of make the rendering cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Because, and I'm saying this as I'm drawing every frame, but because I don't draw every frame, I can take the time to do some kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
But right now I'm actually drawing every frame. So
I like that evolution though in your animations. Like you're doing them more and more, and it's kind of neat to see.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it makes it easy that, you know, I'm able to just do it right here in Photoshop, and then I just push a button and it imports the whole thing into After Effects. I mean, that's hard to beat. So I think I'm okay with that.
All right, so I have my little rough here. This doesn't look confused though.
You know, I should check this against. I should check this against the background that it's going to be in.
Oh, just to make sure it's not like a color that's going to blend right in.
Yeah. Wait, what am I doing? Let's save this.
All right.
And then let's jump over to After Effects.
So now I have one panel. So I'm curious to get further. How is the process on the animation coming along?
Slower than I'd like, but I'm still in the stage of like, let's see, give me sky transition to space. That's what we want. Slower than I like, but I'm still in the stage of building all the assets. And actually I looked at it recently, and when I had it before, I was like, oh man, I'm totally overwhelmed and this is going to take forever. But then I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, I thought about this in the beginning. So a lot of the stuff that I'm looking at is different shots of the same asset. So, which doesn't sound super interesting, but once I get everything built.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the building asset stage is actually probably one of the more tedious and long, but
yeah. I stole this from Invincible. So I was trying to figure out how to do this scene where we look up into the sky and see a god, because there's a lyric, and then I was watching Invincible, and they whip pan from Earth to space. And anyway, so I was like, so I had my painter artist Guminelli, who I'm working with on the backgrounds. I had her watch that, and I was like, see how the clouds are right here, and the sky like changes like almost like a gradient, and then it goes into space. And so anyway, so we're doing the same thing.
That's smart.
It turned out pretty cool.
Those look cool.
Okay, so that'll work. And let me come back here. Yeah, because this is much darker.
I'm dimming. I'm going to grab another cup of coffee because I want to get at least 2 more panels done before I call it.
Cool.
I may not finish a whole rough today, but it's a day where I'm going to allow myself a pass. Rarely do I, but if I were Winsor McCay right now, I would have like 5 strips done and be working on like an animation alongside you, and also just like pausing every hour to do a vaudeville act in front of like.
Oh man!
All right, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna refill.
Okay, so I wonder if I could just flood fill some of this stuff. Let's do that. Let's come up. See the underside. Is that this one? Let's try that. Wait a minute. Is that 2? Okay. So this one is going to be the opposite of that. It's way faster.
So I don't know if it's crazy or not, but my thought is just do in-stores for like the next year and then book, some conventions or whatever, but like just go store to store and like, if I go on vacation somewhere, go to a shop there, try to, hook up like a signing there. And like, regardless, even if it's like one person, that's one person who hasn't read your book. Like, I think that can add up,
Some old school door-to-door politics, man.
Yeah, and I kind of think like the thing about comics is it is kind of a door-to-door game.
Yeah.
Like even conventioning is one of those things that kind of builds on itself, where a lot of sales end up being guys who saw you at the last convention, and it sort of snowballs,
Right.
I'm trying to think of a guy who's a really good example of that. And I had him for a second in my brain, and then Bob the Angry Flower, perfect example. Guy's notorious at almost every comic convention. Dresses as, not that you should do this, but I'm just saying, like, he dresses as like a flower, and he looks really pissed off, and he's got like a big flower around his head. And then his comic is called Bob the Angry Flower. But I think that guy's entire career has been built mostly on conventions, This is like he's a staple at comic conventions. So it's like you expect to see Bob the Angry Flower, especially in California. So it's like, even if you don't even like his stuff, like 5 years in, you might be like, I don't know, I kind of want to check out, like, I'm curious about this Angry Flower guy. Like, it's pretty awesome. So I do think there's a bit of a game like that to it. But I also like the idea of just having interpersonal, like, conversations with customers and seeing if I can push my wares. And also, it's just a fun way to like check out some local comic shops, because I need to re-educate myself on California comic shops. It's a bummer Meltdown isn't around. That would have been One of the best ones to do.
You should go hit up. I know this would be a trip, but you should go hit up Cosmic Monkey.
Yeah, up in Oregon. Yeah, I'll probably work my way up there.
Yeah.
My goal is to start with California, and then of course if I like visit, like like Portland has. I don't know if they still do Stumptown, but I'm sure they have like a decent festival. I have friends who live in Gig Harbor, so I could probably do like a Washington thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Just gonna pace it out and kind of see, But I like the idea of trying to kind of just book it and don't overthink it,
Yeah.
But it requires a lot of like just like typical sales stuff where it's like you kind of have to be a little shameless.
Right.
But I live so close to LA that like I could probably clear, like there's so many options in LA. I could probably spend a couple months like just hustling at those different shops, do Burbank, all of that,
Yeah, LA is huge.
And there's this weird thing that happens. I definitely saw that happen with Numb, where when people see something at a shop, it just like implants in their brain. I don't know why, but it's like just being at a storefront. The only problem is the COVID thing is going to be an interesting thing because a lot of shops still have irregular hours. A lot of places aren't doing signings,
Yeah.
I don't want to encourage people who aren't vaccinated to like come to a big signing,
Right.
But I feel comfortable being able to do it because it's like a very low risk now,
Right. Well, and I mean, if you want to go somewhere where no one's wearing any masks at all, as soon as the CDC said, yeah, if you've been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, you can totally do whatever you want. That I don't know that everybody's been fully vaccinated here, but everybody took that notice to say, "Oh, good, it's over." So, because I'm fully vaccinated. I mean, I'm waiting out the last like 2 weeks, so I've got like another little over a week.
Yeah.
But I went to the store and I was like, oh, so everyone's just done. Everyone.
Oh, that's a little frightening.
Yeah, it is. I don't know.
I mean, it wouldn't be if everyone waited that 2 weeks and did it right, but the likelihood of that.
Yeah. The likelihood of that is low.
Yeah. I don't know. What can you do?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know what you can do.
This is such a weird section of the book. I get really worried about it coming across as like a chick tract.
Yeah, you've mentioned that a lot.
I know. Because like as an artist, like there's some things I just like I think do more harm than good.
Right.
And that's one of them in my mind, and I'm sure like it's for maybe some other people, it's had like a profoundly good impact on their life or whatever. But it's like Thomas Kincaid, not a fan. Like there's a scene for it and good for him and good for any artist who makes a hustle. But like, that's not the hustle I want to do. It's like when you're defining yourself as an artist, there are certain things that like without insulting them, you can just say like, that is everything I'm not. Like in fact, finding your artistic identity sometimes is finding out what are those things that you are absolutely not, because those can be like, it's almost like a reverse of a, so it's like the reverse of north, south. So it's like if you're
Wait, hold on, you're gonna speed by the fact that you just forgot the word south.
No, I just have a learning thing where in order to remember polar opposites of directions, I have to actually go through north, east, southwest. If I don't do that, I forget the arrangements. So that was me very quietly in my head going east, south. Okay. Skipping over east because my brain's like that.
The opposite of north, south. Oh, that's great.
I mean, like, so if you're trying to find your true north, it doesn't hurt to know where south is my point.
Oh yeah.
Because and for me, like, I definitely have some souths, and I would say like Chick Tracts are there. Thomas Kincaid would be there. There's a whole bunch of art that would be there, but like some that's like decent art, like Michael Wayland, like amazing painter, but it's just like that's not ever been like a art objective of mine to be where he is,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where that comes from, is just like I know a direction I don't want to go, and so it's I don't know, but I might be overly concerned about that. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to tell an authentic story, so whatever it comes out like is what it's going to come out like.
Yeah, it's going to be what it is.
Yeah, so if it ends up being a chick tract, maybe that's what's in my soul to write. I don't know.
I think if you found that out, though, it would be really depressing. You know what I mean? Like, I guess.
I think it will. I think it will inevitably come across that way to some people because I think some people will just associate any discussion of faith that's not negative with, some sort of propaganda, and kind of justifiably they'll view it that way, so.
Right.
But I definitely, like, on the spectrum of art, I always kind of want it to be more like, because it talks openly about faith. Not all of my art's going to do that, but because this particular book does, I'm kind of hoping it'll be like more of a sunny day rather than Striper.
I don't get those references.
So so Striper is you should Google because it'll crack you up, and maybe watch some YouTube videos if you're bored. Like if your kid is keeping you up and you're just like done with art for a little bit, just look up Striper interviews.
Okay.
They were a Christian metal band in the 80s, but like a hair band, and they wore striped leotards and called themselves Striper.
All right.
And are like a very good example of just like terrible Christian rock. And then there's a band like Sunny Day Real Estate who like half the members are in the Foo Fighters.
Mm-hmm.
And they are one of the most important bands in like post-hardcore, and kind of invented like emo, and like are pretty revered in the music industry. So, and happen to like Jeremy Enoch, the head guy, happens to be a Christian, but it's like not the same,
Right.
C.S. Lewis, as opposed to like those what are those lost those books, Left Behind?
I don't know.
That's another terrible. There's this whole series of Christian fiction that's called Left Behind. That's about like after the rapture, all these people who are left behind, and it's this very bad. It's just badly written, but it's Christian, so it sells,
Right.
That's my goal, is to avoid that, but who knows?
Right.
Maybe I'm just avoiding the inevitable. Who knows?
Well, I don't know. I think
my book is that way, but I don't know.
I've never been much for apologetics, and so I'm kind of outside of that realm, because it's always just annoyed me that things that are subpar in quality sell because of association rather than because of the quality.
Yeah.
In any field. And so
yeah, like I would feel the same way if it was like somebody who's just like dude, this is my comic about Satan, and it's like a shitty comic, and it's like, okay, well, if it were a good comic about that, that'd be awesome. Like, you know, but like, come on, at least make it awesome.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like even shocking art can be great. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
You should do it right. Like, be metal as hell about it, as opposed to like stupid.
Yeah.
Or Striper. Which you will have to Google because it's hilarious. I don't mind like apologetics conversations, like, you know, philosophy or like debates, but like I don't like the fake crap where it's like I don't like playing pretend, Cory. That's my problem.
I get it.
I feel like there's a world where people are like, I'm going to pretend this television show is really good because it's on my team. And it's like, but it's really bad and you know it. Like,
yeah, I wonder what causes that. It's almost in every subculture.
Yeah.
You know, where people are like, I'm going to give this a pass because it's the thing I identify with.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, because of the fact that I'm crap talking it, I also want to think of scenarios. This is like my devil's advocate self. I want to think of like areas where I'm guilty of that.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like I got to think about it because I'm not sure. And I think maybe if I were guilty of that, maybe I wouldn't even be aware of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, like there's stuff I love because I've met the people that have made it. That kind of falls into that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I legitimately think Invincible is good. But if I'm being honest, I started reading it because I met the. No, that's not true. I think I met Ryan Otley after I started reading it. No, yeah, I was gonna put that out there as like I met Ryan and then kind of fell in love with the comic because I met him, but that's not true. I was listening to the Chris Oatley Artcast, the Paper Wings podcast that he's got with Laura Innes, and they mentioned it, and that's why I started listening to it or reading it.
Nice.
So bad example, I guess. I thought I had one.
I can definitely think of, maybe not off the top of my head, but there's definitely moments at conventions where I met somebody, liked them, bought their work, and liked their work.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I like their work just because they're nice.
Right.
I've had people who I like absolutely hated, and then I got more informed, like, or just more involved in the medium and started respecting some stuff I didn't before. Ironically, we're doing Darth Vader and Son. I used to like hate Jeffrey Brown's work, like,
oh really,
absolutely hate it. And the main reason I did was because I hadn't read it.
Okay.
It's about when Clumsy came out, and this is like the time where I was actually doing conventions, and all people were talking about was like this Jeffrey Brown guy. They were like, it's so sincere and just like authentic and really cool. It's like a sneak peek at a diary. It's like these really deep comics, and I'd look at them and be like, they're drawn freaking terribly. Like I prejudged. I had another guy too, Dash Shaw, who's one of my favorite cartoonists now, and like I prejudged his stuff too, where I was just like, this is terribly drawn. How can anybody? And then like I read his stuff, and I was like, he's doing stuff with like paneling I've never seen any human being do. That's like so advanced and so crazy, and I'm like, oh, okay, that. But but it is funny because it's almost like the first time. Maybe it's kind of like the first time I heard Heroin by the Velvet Underground, where it just does like feedback for like 5 minutes, and it took me a few listens to be like, oh, like, you know, like the first time I was like, I don't know, they're only playing like 2 chords, and then it's like, oh, they're only playing 2 chords. Like that's pretty cool. I don't know. It's a weird thing, but I think that has to do more with taste, like in the sense of like, it's almost like when you try a new food, you may not like it, and then a year later you might be like, why didn't I like that? Like there's so much flavor to that, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe I
tell
have
you
reverse biases.
I'll tell you one in reverse that I want to. I watched the behind the scenes of the Ben Affleck Daredevil, and I fell in love with that movie because of the decisions that they made, because of the decisions that the cinematographer made. And that is like a universally hated film.
Yeah, I haven't even seen it. And
I
I have to admit to prejudging it, where I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, I will say that the follow-up Elektra is one of the worst pieces of drivel I've ever seen in my life.
I really like the Netflix one.
Yeah, the Netflix was good. Totally different vibe because it was just like hyper violent.
Yeah, that's true.
But have you read Daredevil End of Days?
It depends on when it came out. If it came out like, it depends.
Where is it?
Because I did do Daredevil a little bit. I did Frank Miller's run for a little bit on that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But I don't think. I think basically any comics that are slightly mainstream that came out after 2003, I probably didn't read.
I'm going to give you the.
It's crazy to think, but it's like I'm like 20 years absent from somewhat mainstream comics because I just got so knee deep in the other stuff.
I mean, this is fairly mainstream. You got Klaus Janson, Bill Sinewick, Matt Hollingsworth.
Yeah, see, I think I missed a lot of Klaus Janson stuff too, because like
and it's written by Bendis, so it's not older. But why doesn't it have a publishing date on here?
Because I think that's when, to me, that sounds like kind of the new wave when they actually started reviving and making this stuff cool again.
2014.
Yeah, so that sounds like a newer wave thing. Like to me, I mean, that's not new wave, but my point is, I think there was this point in like the early 2000s to like 2010s where comics actually started getting really awesome again, like on the mainstream level, and then Image started expanding to like, I think they created their own kind of newer superhero universe to kind of reboot that part, and then also just doing this weird diverse amount of indies, where it's just like, and I lost track like at that point, which is sad because I feel like,
oh man,
you missed one of my favorite things about Indie Review Show is like I'm getting a clue into like a lot of the really good stuff I missed.
Oh yeah, you missed a ton of really good, because that's when I started getting back into comics. I left comics and art years ago and then came back around 2012, and there was this Image revolution thing. It was great.
Yeah, I feel like I missed so much good stuff. And a lot of that was like getting into stuff like the McCay stuff. Like I just started digging back to a lot of the like early newspaper strip guys, and then getting really knee deep in like Drawn and Quarterly and Fantagraphics type stuff. And like, but yeah, I feel like I kind of missed some of the good stuff. Jake Pfister has joined us. He's done with finals. I'm glad, because that makes it feel like an official night gang when we have Jake, the guy who coined the term night gang, in our chats.
Oh, that was Jake, not Frank, huh?
Yeah, I think Jake was I might be wrong. Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Jake was the first guy to say night gang. And then it just became a thing.
Cool.
Yeah. And then strangely enough, I think Frank did coin, I think, the PM crew, which was like when I actually did like a midday stream, which I felt bummed about because like you hopped on right when I had to leave, and I was like, oh, that sucks, because it kind of felt like I could imagine that feeling like Cory, you showing up and being like, hey guys, and it's like, bye.
Oh, no. That was fine. Yeah, I've done that a number of times.
Boom.
Where I'm like, oh, here you are, and I'm out.
Jake's talking cash, and in that case, I will just say I coined Night Gang, and that is. I'm just kidding. I'm gonna William Randolph Hearst that idea. That's an inside joke, and to get that joke, you should go to IRS Agency and watch our indie review, irsagency.com, and watch our indie review of Winsor McCay.
Oh, speaking of which, I gotta
his life and his art. I want to get to the point as an artist where somebody writes a book about me that's like his art, or better yet, like his farts.
Joshua Kimball, hhis life and his art.
His life and farts. Wait, what? I do.
You're so famous that so many people have done so many books about you that the only thing left unturned is your flatulence.
Yeah, that's true. There's just like we've read a lot of stuff about this guy's art, but have we read about the art? The fart jokes don't get old, though. I will say that. Joshua Kimball, 50 Shades of Farts. I like the idea of it being like 50 Shades of F space arts. So like a fine artist might read it and have like a moment of confusion, but like anybody with a sense of humor would instantly see fart. It's hard, man. So here's the thing, and I have this question for you, Cory. How do you deal with like jokes that are funny but like super immature when you're teaching a class?
I don't say them.
No. I'm not saying say them. I'm saying how do you like react to that? Like I have trouble with that. When my son says something that's really funny that I don't want him repeating in class, I still have trouble not laughing at it because it's funny.
He's
7.
I have the problem where I will be speaking and then I'll come up with just an incredible double entendre. And then I'm like, I will physically stop moving, put my hand up and say, I'm not going to do that. And then I will say it out loud. I probably seem like a crazy person, but I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. And then I move on with what I'm doing. So I don't handle it super well. And I don't know that the Kerr family is necessarily the bastion of examples of how to not have your kids say stuff, because right now mom is nursing, right? So Malia's nursing the kid. And Maddox has always been obsessed with what he calls boomins. And I just love that he named breasts boomins, and we have never let that die. So and he's a boy, and so he's just obsessed with anatomy. And so like he's that kid that like will walk around and be like, she has a penis? No, she does not have a penis. Oh, he has a penis? Yeah, he's got a penis. And you have a penis? Yeah, I have a penis. And I have a penis. Yeah, but Scarlett, no penis. Nope, Scarlett doesn't have a penis. He's just very obsessed with it. And so then he goes around and he's like, mom has boomins. So today
boomins is a great
it's
slang
phenomenal.
Term. Like that should be in the broader cultural vocabulary.
If I have anything to say with it, it will be.
Yeah.
But so
I think you should incorporate that into your sci-fi book or your fantasy book, I should say, because it's more fantasy than sci-fi. Yeah. But when you start writing that, you should have a ship called like the Boomins or something, and like only people in on the joke.
I am fully naming entire characters after stuff that he's said. For example, really early on, he was talking early but not pronouncing things well, like everybody. And we have a device in his room that I don't want to use the name of because then she will respond.
Jake said boomins, that's a coin phrase, and he said, yo, I'm writing that as slang.
Yep. And so he would always ask for his lodobides, which are he wants lullabies. So we have like a bunch of like punk and rock songs that are like kind of the ballad types that he falls asleep to.
You know what's crazy? Benji, when he was like, you know that like era of like, well, you guys are heading into it, but it's like, like where nothing gets your kid to sleep. And you have those like late nights where like, at least for us, like we'd both be almost in tears, just like we need to sleep. Like just go to sleep.
I think you and I do this drastically differently.
Okay. Well, anyhow,
because we shut the door, and that's it. I don't actually care what happens after that. If it takes him 2 hours, 3 hours to go to sleep, that's fine because he's got.
We waited till a couple months in to do that, but not very different. But I will say, so anyhow, there was this era where the only thing that would help him fall asleep was AC/DC, and it just appeared on a playlist I had of like just hard rock, and for some reason he just like poof just went out. So there were these late nights where we're both exhausted and just Benji's falling asleep to Highway to Hell. It was the weirdest thing. It's like sweet lullabies for a kid. I think that's pretty amazing.
Yep, that's phenomenal. So anyway, he would ask for his Lodobides.
Lodobides.
And I will play those Lodobides for you, my friend.
I like that helmet guy too. Is going to have to be.
Oh yeah.
Character.
Good old helmet guy.
Helmet guy is a great character name, and if that hasn't been used in comics, it really should be. Like that's a great character name.
Yeah. So anyway, he comes with good stuff. But Scarlett had the most incredible names. She had a stuffed animal named Computer Robert Beaker III. She was like early 3-year-old. And one of our friends gave her this, I think it was a penguin or something. And people started giving her stuff just to hear what she would name it. She had like 4 dolls named Rachel, but then she had like Computer Robert Beaker III. She had a stick named Corvus. And the stick, it was just a stick that she found in our front yard. It was just a stick named Corvus that she wouldn't let us get rid of. And she would say things like, yeah, Corvus gets in trouble because he hits people. We're like, no, you hit people with Corvus and get in trouble. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. See, that's Corvus plot material right there. So what you need is a villain who just has a stick named Corvus that he just beats people up with. And he's like, Corvus, stop it, dude. The person's like, they don't want to be Corvus. No, it's not. Yeah. I'm not doing anything. There was stupid stick Corvus.
Oh, she had this star, cheap piece of crap, like star purse. Had these giant googly eyes on it that she named Klenner. And
these are great names. These are like epic fantasy sci-fi names.
Right. So she has Klenner the purse. And we lost Klenner. Klenner disappeared for probably 2 years, right? So she's like 5, and we find one of the googly eyes, and she goes, "Oh, look, Klenner's eyeball." And we're like, "How the crap did you remember? It's like 2/5 of your life ago." She met somebody once, and she was 3, and she saw them again 6 months later and called them by name.
Dude, okay, this is one of the shocking things about being a parent. Because Benji, like, there are times where I've just thought he was not aware at all.
Right.
And then, like I said, a year later, he'll like remember somebody that like you just described that he met like once.
Yeah.
And like he'll see him again and be like, and I'll be like, "Oh, you've never met?" And he's like, "No, like we met."
Yeah.
That's like, but you were like 3, like you were 2 at that time. Like, how do you? It is amazing what they do retain and actually do notice.
Yeah.
And then also it's so fascinating how different they all are, because it's like, there's just like it's just kind of bizarre, like the personality traits that just sort of show up there. I think people who believe in like that whole nature versus nurture thing.
Yeah.
People who believe in strict nurture are just like are likely not parents. Like, I just can't imagine like a parent believing in nurture, because it's like, I mean, there is an element of nurture for sure to like everyone's personality, like, but there's just something that's like weird and very unique about like every kid, like early, like way earlier than there should be. Like, it's just, yeah. And like square bees is pretty awesome. I never thought of doing a bee as a square. I'm really excited about that square bee, and I want it to be I mean, look at that. Look at this square bee. That's awesome. I almost want to get a tattoo of that. Should get that on my arm.
Oh, I'll tell you it's cool.
Square bee.
So Scarlett was kind of not kind of, she was very into emotional things, which was a little concerning because it always kind of translated into like the most emotional part of the movie is usually the most traumatic. So like in like Beethoven, like she really liked it. Emily almost drowns. And we were like, should we be worried about that? You know? And then somebody pointed out, no, that's just the most emotional part of that movie. She just likes, highly emotional things. We're like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But where was I going with that? What did you just say? Oh yeah. So then she's doing all these drawings and they're like kind of strange. Because she'll draw people and then draw them crying. She'll just draw a huge tear. Like everybody that she drew was like crying and sad and whatever. And we're like, are we not raising? Like, are you sad? She's like, no, I'm fine. Like we're trying to figure out like if there's some sort of deeper meaning to it. And there isn't. She just likes emotional things. Anyway, she did one drawing where this kid was just super happy. And my wife, it made her cry because she was just like, oh, she's not totally miserable. Like there's what's in there or whatever. And so our friend made it into a stuffed animal, like took the drawing and turned it in it. And it's one of those kid drawings where like the body and the head are kind of the same oblong shape. Yeah. And the legs are like long noodle legs and long noodle arms. Anyway, it was incredible. I've got to find it. I don't know where it is now, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I made I got one of Benji's drawings. He used to draw these dudes. I can almost draw it from memory. Like he had these figures that like they had these long legs. Like they were like your typical kind of stick figure, but just like weirdly like kind of crazy long legs. And then almost like that with like a kind of dude.
Oh yeah.
So anyhow, I got one of those like from that era, like engraved on like a heart for my wife, like a little necklace for like cool. A Mother's Day a while ago. But I gotta say, Jake points out a good point though. I didn't even consider Minecraft in the equation here because my son does dig Minecraft in safe mode, like creative mode or whatever. Because the other mode is a little more like interactive, and I don't know. I prefer him kind of staying away from that for now. Right. But yeah, he does play Minecraft, and he has seen the bees in Minecraft, so maybe that's where that square shape came from. Because they do have square bees in Minecraft. That is true.
Could be.
To be or not to be. Monty Python has a song about a bee. It's called Eric the Half a Bee, and it's just full of terrible bee puns. It starts out as like, to be or not to be, and then it's like, but if half a bee were not to be, philosophically, it's basically about the philosophy of like, if you had half a bee, is it still a bee? Or a half bee? It's so stupid. But there's a song about Eric the Half a Bee that you can look up after you look up Striper. Oh my gosh. I am really digging how that's coming out. How many of those have you managed to rock?
I'll tell you in a second.
Because it seems like you're actually making pretty quick progress on that, man.
Yeah, I've got 7 of the 10 done.
Sweet.
So far it looks like this.
All right, Cory. The next thing you need to animate is just got to be like a heavy metal level animation.
One of the things I enjoy about our friendship is how delusional you are about my abilities. I thoroughly enjoy that.
Hey, I'm just saying, like, you are leveling up. You have been leveling up.
Sure,
You're getting there.
and I can appreciate that, but that's a jump and a half, I
It's a
think.
tall order. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're talking about teams of people.
Yeah. I rewatched some of that movie. I haven't watched the full thing in a long time, but I rewatched like the sequence. It's like a warship. I
I've never
forget.
seen it.
It's you can see clips of it on YouTube, and some of it's just stunning animation.
Yeah, I've seen clips of it. I've never seen the actual whole thing.
But there's like a sequence where they're like on an airplane, and like the undead like kind of come and I don't know. It's like a bunch of people get wiped out and then they become undead, and it's like this creepy sequence. But the whole way it's animated is just unbelievable. Like,
yeah,
unbelievable, mind blowing. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that corn video, the McFarlane one.
Yeah,
that and that Do the Evolution one. They're like, I love that style, and that's a little bit limited. I could see you getting. I think you're way closer to doing like Waltz with Bashir level, though, for sure.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean that's the exact technique that I'm using.
Which is a movie that's like probably more relevant now than it's been in a while. Not that it's ever irrelevant.
Yeah,
Worth seeing.
Yeah, that's kind of depressing.
Yeah, let's talk about something happy.
I don't know enough about that to form a huge opinion, but I do hate the oversimplification of things where it's like,
that's where I think you and I would agree.
Yeah,
because I think that's a really freaking heavy, nuanced one, and it's not like an easy. I think anyone pretending to be clear cut on that is insane.
Well, no, and it's very much like I'm not anti-Semitic if I question the governmental policies of the government, and I'm not anti-American if I question the president of the United States, and I'm not, it's like, I'm not anti-Palestinian if I don't think certain actions are okay. And I don't know. It's just, I hate the thing where it's like, if
it's a hot topic. So like if you,
it's a hot topic. So you have to be all in on all this stuff. And I'm like, well, what if I'm like, I don't like war in general.
Yeah. That's kind of
like,
I suspect you and I probably are pretty much on the same page with that, because it's like I don't take an easy side with that, and I don't think there are easy sides.
Oh no, definitely there's some huge problematic oversimplifications.
Okay, so
big deals.
That being said, I'm going to disappear for another minute, but I do think I might have like a few more panels. I don't know. I'll stick around as long as you're sticking around.
I've got 2 more of these to do, so maybe about another 15 minutes, I think. And then, I'm out.
All right, I'll be back shortly, and then we'll rock another 15 minutes or so. Oh, okay.
If that's too drastic of a change. I'll lighten up that underbelly a little bit.
That's actually one of the reasons I like that movie, because I thought it did a good job of kind of depicting the complexity and nuance and weirdness of it and horror of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that's another one I've got to see at some point that I haven't seen.
Yeah, it's really good because it gets into like some of the Sharon stuff that was problematic, but also like some of the stuff that it just shows the nuance like on all sides. And there are some things, hot topic issues that I hesitate to talk about publicly, not out of cowardice, but just because of the nuance. That's one of them. The other would be like the like abortion or something. Like I don't tend to like talking about that publicly. Not that I don't have a take on it, but it's very nuanced. So it's like I think there's certain things where if somebody's not nuanced when they talk about it, I instantly just think they haven't thought about it. Like,
Right.
there are some issues where it's like, oh, okay, take a stand. Like you gotta, but there's some where it's like, even in art too, where people are like, kind of like, that is not art, like period, about stuff. I usually am like, I instantly am really skeptical of that person,
Right.
Which, to be fair, like, I mean, okay, so we had like a stream a while ago. Awesome. So Jake's hopping off. Hey, you have fun as well, sir. That's a bummer. I was just about to bring up manga, so I had my friend
he just
Rick
did
on.
He just did a whole course on
Oh,
Discord on manga.
I need to check that out because I think Jake is actually pretty awesome about that topic. But what's funny about like the missing nuances, I'm definitely guilty of like. So I had my old buddy on who I know probably has a similar view of manga as I do, where it's like there's complexity and depth to it. But we both had this like long running joke because we were going to a school where a lot of people were doing this like very like hackneyed bad version of manga,
right?
Where we were just like, we hate manga, but it's like my wife like introduced me to a ton of good manga, and like I love like tons of anime and stuff. So it's like there's nuance even with that, but like sometimes just for humor's sake, I'll just skip the nuance and be like, it's terrible, even though it's not, So, but I guess my point is I'm guilty of the same thing half the time of like not having nuance where there is nuance. But yeah, I don't know. Feels like there's some like even man, that's one of the things I liked about that McCay book was just like there's crazy ambiguity in like a lifetime. It's very like one of my favorite things about biography is that although I'd love to read that, like I wish there were like an autobiography by Winsor McCay. I want everybody to write autobio, basically. Lives are really fascinating,
Yeah.
We had some guys come in to. Oh, nice. Thank you. Drop that doc. Yeah. But yeah, like we even had like we're thinking about we're saving up to get our AC fixed because our house is like, when it was first built is when our AC was last upgraded.
Right.
It never was. It just the unit it came with. So it's like, it's unusable. It's just like $2 billion to run our AC. Not really, but like a ridiculous
amount. It's so inefficient that it's not cost effective.
Yeah, like at this point, it's just insane for us to do. So we need to fix it at some point, especially because we live in a desert. So like a swamp cooler works in this area, which is great. But like ideally, like swamp coolers kind of suck sometimes. Like you get a lot of outside air, and then if there's like a fire, which happened a lot in SoCal, like then you start getting smoke in the house, and that sucks. So like, so then you're choosing between like just like hot boxing in a room, it's a tough thing sometimes with the swamp cooler. So anyhow, we're looking into that. We're trying to save up for it. And we had some people in for an estimate, and instantly I was just curious about these guys' stories. Like, what is it to be like an air conditioning installer? And then like, what do you learn from that? And like, what's your life like? And I don't know, like, I do think people's stories are really interesting. It's one of the reasons I always get baffled when people hit like a blank page kind of scenario where they're like, what do I write about? It's like, there's so many things, like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's some interesting stuff out there. I'm not as into bio.
It depends on which bio, because I have read auto bios where I'm like, why? Why?
Right. Or there's auto bios where it's like, maybe live another 20 years before you decide to write this.
Although sometimes that can be cool. It's like a lot of really great terrible like poppy like love songs about heartbreak were written by like teenagers who like had no comprehension of love or real heartbreak, but they're like great songs, and they really do like put you back in that mode of like being like a late teenager who's like obsessed and in love with someone, you know? So there's like, sometimes it can be done so well. Like I have read like comics by like people in their early 20s where it's like about romance or something. And it's like, I remember that. Like, it's kind of fun in a way. And then there's other things like, you know, like I've had experiences where stuff that I really connected to as a teenager, I read now and I'm like, what a moron. Like, it's just, you know, like a character. I was just like, this guy's into truth and stuff like that, and then you read it later and you're like, man, this guy's just like really immature. And like, so I don't know, it's a fine line with autobio.
As much as I love Spider-Man, that's why I find it hard to read Spider-Man nowadays.
Yeah,
I'm just not an angsty teen.
Yeah,
or an angsty preteen.
It's funny, I haven't reread a run of Spider-Man in a long time. I have to say, though, I really loved Spider-Verse.
Oh, yeah, Spider-Verse was cool.
And I like the Miles Morales thing. So if that's what the comics are like, I probably might dig it, because it was sophisticated in the way that it was dealing with, like, it approached it from a few angles. Like, I related more to his dad.
Right.
But they made his dad character, like, a great dad, which was kind of cool, you know?
Yeah, so, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Spider-Verse is good, and the Spider-Verse comic was good, except the villains were lame. They're like these Victorian energy vampires. And it just...
I wonder if that was influenced by Into the Shadows.
I don't know. I'm not sure. It could have been, but it kind of takes you out of it, because the whole time you're like, oh, they're talking in Old English again. That's great. And they're like, you know, trying to have like tea parties with corpses and stuff. And anyway, it's an interesting concept. They don't really go into it into the Spider-Verse movie, but they hint at it. Which is basically like every dimension has a spider totem, and it's tied into the web of fate. And the web of fate is basically like the fates, the strings of fate that the Greeks used to talk about and deal with. And the basic idea is that shoot, I need to look back at the beginning. It's too late. The basic idea is that if you can control these strings of fate, then you can control everything. And so they're trying to cut the strings of fate so that they can control the world, but they also feed off of animal totems, which apparently or whatever. And that's where Spider-Man's precognition comes from. The Spidey sense is that he's uniquely tied into the web of fate. And so he gets a little bit of vibration before something happens because he's tied into the web of fate. It's a good story.
Yeah.
Good way to explain things.
That sounds really cool, actually. I need to...
that one actually, I know you don't like reading digital comics, but that one actually was free on Comixology and might still be free.
Should look into that. I think I might turn around a little bit on digital if I were more of a tablet user. And I think that makes a big difference, because I could see that being a convenience. And I can't read it.
Yeah, I can't read them on the computer. It drives me nuts. And I can't read them on the computer's okay, but not my favorite. But I definitely can't do it on a phone. I've tried on a phone, and it is horrible.
I love it.
I've tried to make this not awful. Let's see how we're doing here. Okay, here we go. Final run through. It's too bright there. Yeah, that one spot is way too bright.
That is pretty darned impressive, dude.
Thank you. Where was that? One of these, is it that one? It's the last one. Yep, that one's too bright. Okay, so does that need to be this? No. This. Doesn't it just need to be lots of that? Does that fit? Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, there we go. That's better. Yep, there we go. That's a lot better. Cool. So here's my trick so that I don't have to draw every frame. I picked keyframes of this. There's actually about 20 frames. No, let's see. 30, 40 frames that these 10 images cover. And so what I do is now I'm going to take each one of these keyframes and I'm going to take it in and I'm going to rotate it and use the puppet pen to warp it into each one. So it's technically moving as it bends and warps, but I don't have to draw the bend and warp and movement. I should probably do a video on that. I bet people would find it interesting.
I would find it interesting.
Yeah.
I really actually do want to do, I don't know, I'm going to have to do something crazy when I'm done with this book.
Yeah.
Maybe you and I will have to like make a feature length animated film or something.
Oh man, you're starting to sound like Jim. He's always wanted me to do stuff like that. And I'm always like, it's so much work.
Well, it would be a beast, but I don't know. I definitely think cool. I might have to dip in on a, I actually enjoyed the last time we did collaborate on animation. Yeah. So I feel like I want to do something. We'll have to figure out something, maybe a collab.
Oh, well, let me ask you this since you brought that up. 2022. Let's see. Is it fall of 2022? Are you going to be done by then?
I have no idea. I'm hoping.
Well, are you planning on being done by then?
I would hope so.
Okay, because I am getting some funding to do an animation, and the whole reason I'm getting the funding for it is because I want to test Adobe's team-based collaboration.
Oh, okay.
The idea being that you can kind of collaborate on the fly, and I've heard them mention it a lot, and I've just, because I'm old, I'm kind of stuck in my ways. I've been like doing a bunch of other kind of workarounds, and I want to learn kind of the Adobe Teams thing. And so I pitched them this project. I don't know if it'll get approved, but I basically said, let me get a team together and make an animated short.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And I've got
a good, like knowledgeable, like knowledge building sabbatical kind of thing,
Yeah, exactly. And I've got a cool idea for the story too. That's kind of based on like genius. The idea of genius, about how.
Yeah, I tend to hate the idea of genius, and then we read a book about Winsor McCay on IRS, and I'm like, okay, it's hard to fight that one.
I'm not talking about people that are geniuses. I am talking about the Greek concept of genius.
Ooh.
Like well-damoned. Have you heard of the term well-damoned?
No, but this is interesting.
Uberdamian, I think. I have to look at the term. Well-damoned means that you're possessed by a good demon. It's the idea of getting into a flow state and getting like pure inspiration flowing towards your creativity. They talk about it in War of Art. They talk about it in Big Magic. Anyway, it's the idea that people have geniuses with them that are these spirits that live outside of time.
Yeah.
Or these gods or these demigods that live outside of time, not that you are a genius, and you try to tap into the genius of your, the genius of your art.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the concept that I have is like, basically we follow around this idea that's trying to be born, and it's just trying to get people's attention, and they're all really distracted by their electronics and lives and busyness and whatever. And so it finally finds somebody that's paying attention, and then everybody's like, oh, they're so creative. But in reality, it was just somebody who chose to carve out time for creativity rather than just be entertained all the time.
That is 100% true. I think, like, it's funny because some people might just push it out to like hard work, which is funny because it kind of has the same result, but it's like, but I definitely think anybody engaged in art and ideating anything, there is something weird and beyond just you when you're ideating. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like,
oh, totally.
I've experienced it for sure. I've come up with ideas that I'm not sure where they came from. And also just concepts that I know were kind of out there and that I know are accessible to other people. Like it is kind of an interesting thing, but I definitely think, especially philosophically, it's hard to kind of make a case for an art, even though it's like, I think the most intuitively obvious to people with art that it exists.
Yeah.
But I think it's way more provable with like mathematics, where
well, you look at like, what do they call that in science, where is it a ubiquitous concept? What's the concept to describe multiple simultaneous discovery, where multiple people in different parts of the world that have never met each other make the same discovery at the same time?
Yeah.
And it's basically that, like, scientists explain it away as, like the zeitgeist has created a situation, where, there's enough variables at play that it causes people to think about this thing. And I think that's a logical explanation of that. But I also think that, the idea of that idea wanted to be born at that point in time.
I also feel like there's something interesting with, like, so the science example is really great because in science, like, whenever something is observed that's new and then like kind of passes like, a scientific test, right, against like a control group, like, okay, so we observed this weird thing, okay, so let's like put it in a controlled environment, compare it to a control group that's like not affected by these different things, and see what happens. When scientists like come up with something, there's a difference between invention and discovery. And I think like it's really interesting that they call it discovery. And in mathematics, like, most equations aren't considered inventions; they're just discoveries. Like you clued into something that's mathematically been true before you realized it.
Right.
Like, before people knew 1 + 1 equaled 2, like if you had 2 apples, like you had 1 apple and you added another apple, you had 2 apples before you could call it that.
Yeah.
You take away 1, you have 1 apple. Like, before people had an equation for that, like the truth existed. It just, somebody tapped in and kind of like was able to measure it. I feel like that's one of the most interesting things in the world is just that, where it's like, and in art, I feel like when you get in a flow state, you're kind of in that, sort of, it's so tough because whenever I say Socratic, or it's like a Socratic idea, Plato when writing about Socrates, like, because I mentioned the Socratic cave idea, and somebody kind of corrected me recently to be like, well, that was Plato, but then I'm like, looked into it and I was like, oh, it's Plato writing about Socrates talking about the cave. So it's hard to parse, but anyhow.
Well, I mean, don't we only have Socrates because of Plato?
Yeah, I mean, technically all of our knowledge, well, most of our knowledge of Socrates is Plato. So writing about Socrates. But the point being, like, the idea of that, like, third realm of, like, truth, like that kind of third eye, where it's like you have these like you have kind of an ethereal plane where concepts and scientific discoveries kind of exist, and then doing the activity just sort of allows you to access that outer realm. I know it's like all spiritual and weird, but it's like I definitely believe in that. Like I definitely think there is some kind of space where, like, concepts and ideas exist and you can kind of be more in tune or less in tune with it. I don't even know if it needs like a mystical explanation, but it's definitely interesting, and it's one of the funnest things about art.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
Yeah.
It is bizarre. Have you read Big Magic yet?
No, I need to.
Man, I think you'd like it.
Big Magic.
It's, I mean, the whole concept is, the whole idea is basically what we're talking about. But she does a good job doing stuff with it. So
I'm gonna write that down.
Anyway.
Big Magic.
As much as I don't want to be done because I'm on a roll, it is 1:40 in the morning and I am going to be done.
I kind of agree with that call, because I think I'm going to be burnt if I keep going. These were the times where men had to stop amid inspiration so as not to burn out.
As you're looking at this, is there anything that's like drifting weird or anything?
I'm actually pretty impressed. I mean, it looks a tad jerky, but I think it's because of the rendering lag.
No, that's the part that'll get better once I do the in-betweens. So
yeah, but I think like I actually like the variation on the light at the top. It looks like water. It's very cool.
Okay, cool.
That's very impressive, Cory. And I wasn't kidding about the, like, that kind of thing. I see so much potential in, like, and I'm so glad to see, like, it has been really cool to see that, like, the bird that you snuck in on the Endo XO that was more traditionally animated. It's neat to see the hybrid that you're kind of developing towards, but it's fun to see, like, full animation creep in there.
Yeah, it's fun to do too. It's tempting to do it, to do everything that way, but I think I would never get anything done.
Yeah, that's a beast of a way to do everything. But
I mean, the indie animators that I see that do it traditionally, they either put stuff out very seldom, because it takes them 10 years to do something, or it's just it's I don't want to say I hate it, but it's not my cup of tea. Where it's just sloppy and scrappy looking. It's like watching somebody's sketchbook move. It's like interesting, but then it's just like, yeah, but if you could draw better, why not draw better?
Now, I think a good exception to that's that what's the guy who did the cat animations? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like it's a whole series of animations. It'll be like a Christmas tree. The cat's looking at it. It starts kind of clawing at the like the ornaments on the tree, and then eventually just knocks over the whole tree, and then kind of walks away.
Vaguely familiar.
Anyhow, there's a guy who did that all hand done traditionally. And it's like
there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of exceptions to that. There's a lot of really nice gestural.
But I get what you're saying, because to do it efficiently requires so much, either crazy amounts of time. Yeah, like the last thing you want to do is make the Thief and the Cobbler.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Let us not make that. It's kind of stunning. All right, we got to wrap it. But so anybody who's watching this, like, if you want to see some stunning animation, made by like pretty much one dude, he didn't have an in-betweener on this. Just check out Little Nemo on YouTube by Winsor McCay. Like, and don't look at like the '80s one, which is actually pretty cool and well animated. And what was the other one? They did a Studio Ghibli too. Did like a trailer for Little Nemo because I think they were intending to do it, and I wish they had because it's just beautiful. But anyhow, look at like the original. It's like a weird black and white cartoon with like hand tinted colors. That was all done by one dude, which is crazy. Like back in the 1900s, early 1900s.
Yeah.
That's weird.
And if you'd like to learn more about that,
yes,
we're IRSagency.com.
All right. Thanks for the fun after party, Cory.
Yep.
And also for the wonderful guest we had at the beginning.
Yeah.
That was
I like how I said, I'm going to do this for a few minutes, and it's 2 hours later, and we got it done. So,
yeah, I'm so, yeah, it's my problem right now is like I'm trying to kind of detach, but I'm like making progress. Okay. But I do think if I keep going, I'm going to be dead tomorrow.
Yeah, I definitely am. So,
okay. All right, let's call it. I'm going to stop. I'm going to just save. Thanks to everybody who has watched. I think a few people have been kind of silent but watching, which is kind of cool. And thanks, Jake, for hanging out in the chats and making this a true Night Gang experience. And then, yeah, if you guys haven't, don't miss out on the IRSagency.com, the last review. And while you're at it, check out the previous ones before that. All that being said, I'll probably be doing a live stream again tomorrow, late at night. And you can check out corykerr.com. Anywhere else you want to guide people, Cory?
That's it.
All right. And then you're on my channel. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit that bell, hit the like button, and then go hit someone just for fun. I'm just kidding. I just noticed I was saying hit a bunch. And then blame it on your, I forget the name of the stick, Cory. I was going to wrap it.
Clinner.
Clinner?
No, Corver.
Corver. Okay. So yeah. Then
Clinner was the star. Corver is the stick.
Okay, so go hit someone and blame it on Corver, and then I didn't tell you to do that. All right, so we will see you guys on the next indie review show, but probably before that. So have a good night, all. Trying to hit the stop, but no. Now my screen is frozen for some reason. Ah, there we go. Okay. And goodbye.